Welcome to Obsidian. Let's use Dataview to calculate our travel times. Okay, g'day guys, welcome back to another Obsidian video. Tonight we're going to be having another look at Dataview. Dataview is probably one of those videos that you're going to see come up every now and then again, simply because Dataview is amazing and so incredibly powerful with what it does. And probably some of us are just barely scratching the surface with it, to be completely honest. But tonight we're going to be looking specifically at travel and how do you manage travel at your table, and how do you calculate the travel distance between towns. For anyone who's familiar with the rules, you know there is pretty extensive rules that do exist for travel, and you need to determine your method of travel and your level of exhaustion, and there's some magic items that can affect you. And obviously I'm going to be talking about D&D 5th edition specifically, but you know, what I'm going to show you tonight could be applied to pretty much any TTRPG game, I'm most certain, right? As long as you can calculate it in a way that the tool can handle it, there's no reason why you couldn't do this. So I'm in a pretty travel heavy or travel extensive campaign currently. We're actually leading into Horde of the Dragon Queen. You know, it's something I've never run, wanted to run it for a while, but we're doing sort of a march from over in the east here. My players are heading towards the west, coming back into the primary sort of area where the adventure begins. And there's a lot of travel in there. And one thing that I've probably messed up is there's a lot of travel beyond that as well. So it's going to be a very, very travel heavy module for me. We started with the Adventure Guild stuff, right? The pre sort of little modules, and they all sort of exist over here in the far right. And basically, you know, we've just been marching the players towards the west, following in the direction that the story goes. So a lot of travel, a lot of me having to sit there and calculate how long it's going to go. Anyway, I'm searching around and I came across this fantastic website. So 5e Magic Shop, all right. It's a Patreon. It's got some calculators, mercenary cost, bounty rewards, specifically the travel calculator. It's got some generators and it's got some tools. But the tool that I really like, and hats off to the guy who's made this or lady who's made this, right? Like, I love this thing. It lets you kind of come in here and go, all right, we need to travel 20 miles. We're going to travel for 8 hours a day at normal pace, and we're going to come in here and use a donkey. All right, so if we do that, it's going to take us 6 hours and 41 minutes. So they've gone and done all the maths for us, right, which is just very, very useful and easy. Now, the problem with this is it's Patreon, right? So you've got to pay a monthly subscription fee. And to be frank, I'm asking myself, like, you know, is the travel calculation worth it? You know, I'm pretty good with Excel. I'm a data analyst in my spare time for work. So, you know, I make reports for a living and I work with data for a living. So reverse engineering this or putting this into another sort of method that can be used to automatically calculate this is something I'm more than capable of doing. So I wanted this, and I wanted this in Obsidian, to be honest. My first step was to like, ooh, let me draft out what I think this should look like. And in my mind, it would be fantastic for us to have a plugin for managing this, right? I think that would be cool. Something very similar to the website, for example. So I just threw this together, was like, cool, let's take the ideas from some of these travel calculator websites that I've found, and there were some free ones. That's just the better quality one that I found. I was like, oh, well, if we had a plugin over here on the right in Obsidian, that would be really cool, because then you could come in here and you could put your miles and you could calculate your pace and all that sort of stuff. I was speaking to Javelin about it, and he's like, oh, what could I do here? And I think he was actually like trying to figure out if he could automatically calculate it when you actually did the measuring of distance, right? So for anyone who hasn't seen it, you can hold Alt and left click, and then left click, and you can see the number of miles. And you know, I think he was trying to figure out a way to actually include that in the distance mile REMI, which would be very, very cool. Let's be completely honest. Like, I think that would be a fantastic outcome if we can ever get to that. So yeah, that was just an idea that I had to throw this together. as I've been thinking about it, there's been some things come up. So Anna Meyer, for anyone who doesn't know who she is, she's the, the absolute god of a cartographer in the Greyhawk realms, right? She makes all the amazing maps, and she is a user of Obsidian as well. And she came on to the Facebook one day. She's like, has anyone thought about global configurations? And I was like, whoa, there's an idea, right? There's a really, really good idea. And so what she was really talking about was just a very simple concept. What if we went to a note, all right, could be any note, let's say it was this note, and we called it something like global config. All right, and in there we put some front matter and we started having a configuration. So variable could be 1, for example. What she was saying is, what if you had a note that had variables inside it that you then reference from other notes? All right. So this concept of a global configuration came about, and you could use a note as your configuration page, and then you can link to the configurations from other places. It's all very easy to do. I'm just going to grab my code here just to show you how easy it is. We'll do this in a bit of an easier way, so just try to ignore me for a sec. Alright, so we've got the variable here of global config. Let's bring up another note, and we'll use our fantastic new tab system. Okay, so we've got global config over here with variable 1, and over here we're going to reference that configuration. So what we're going to do is we're going to go global config variable. And we're going to go back into here. Oops, sorry. And we're going to use this. Is that right? There we go. So the variable is 1, and I can link to it from over here on my other note. Okay, and all I'm doing here is I'm using a very simple Dataview query, and a lot of you will have seen those Dataview queries before. All right, for example, let's just go down here and have a look at like this .file name is a very common one, and also this .politics. Let's do that. So if we were to come here and do equals this .variable name, where the variable is in my front matter, okay, and then I come back here and do this, then I'm pulling 1 into my note on that one, okay, but over here I can pull 1 from this note over to here, but this one here that I put in before is pulling the name of that title in, okay. So as you can see, Dataview is amazing, right? If you haven't played with it, you definitely need to learn how to use this, because it is incredibly useful throughout your notes. But that's what this video is about, is specifically this concept of having a global configuration. Alright, and what Anna realized was that we can do mathematics. Okay, so equals this times 10. Alright, so 1 times 10 equals 10. Alright, we can do maths with this, and boom, like wow, here we go. This is now giving me ideas. Now, one of the ideas that I initially thought of, and I can't remember, I think this is probably Anna's idea to be honest, but was this idea of having an economic scale, okay, where you have a scale of 1, and then over here, let's say you have an item, and in that item you have a price. Alright, so the price is 10 gold, okay. In that note, what I would usually do is equals this price would be the price, okay? And I would usually do something like GP, so it's there. I'll get rid of that for the sake of it. Actually, no, keep that. I'll move that over here. Alright, so my note might say, alright, this is my magic item. Right, we could call this magic item 1. And then over here we're setting a price, so it's 10 gold, okay, But now I want to put my economic scale in here. So what do? I come in here, I go equals this dot price times, get rid of the second one, it's like it's putting an extra one in there because it thinks it's wanting to do a bold. And then I'm going to bring in my global config dot variable. But what we're going to do is we're going to change that to economic scale. Alright, so now we have, my scale is 1, so we have 10 gold. But what happens if I come in here and change my scale to 2? And I think what you've actually got to do here, just so you guys can see what this is actually doing, I'm just going to put a link into any other page here. But effectively what I want to do is I want to move away from this note and back to this note, okay, and see that refreshed, okay. So that's how Dataview works. If you make a change to your global configuration in real time, it's not going to update in real time, but it is going to update the next time that note opens, okay. So that's what I did there. I just had a link and I could have shut that down and reopened it, right, but I have found that just, you know, a simple backwards and forwards seems to do the trick. Alright, if we go backwards and forwards, we're now 30 gold because we've got a scale of 3, right? We're going up to 300% of the price. So, just think about where this could go, guys. Like, you could have this built into all your items, right? You have a cost, you have a template, for example, that displays the cost in the page, but you have the template so that it automatically is timesing by that global scale. So that now you've got a way to sort of control that. It's very, very powerful, right? It's a concept that you could certainly have some fun with in your game. Like, let's say war breaks out, and you know the price of commodities go up. So you could come in here effectively, and I wonder if this actually works. You could actually do a 1.2 maybe. Haven't tried that. Wow, look, it works, right? So you can do that scaling up of your economy across your game as you're doing it, and that becomes a very powerful thing. Just to throw some further ideas out there, like my video last night was about inline scripts. Build this into your scripts, right? So for your random tables, so that when you're pressing your random tables and it's creating your random shops, it's putting the price in, but it's timesing it by that global configuration. And this means that if you use that inline random table generator at any time in the future, you're automatically including that in the price. So that's the concept of a global configuration. All right, it's very simple. It's just a note, any note that you can define as a place where you keep your global config. It doesn't have to be one note even. Like, you could have multiple global configurations if that's what you want. You can set this up however you like. It's just this idea of having a place to store variables that you can reference. And you can, of course, use this sort of methodology here where you can very easily reference a page and then the variables inside it. Alright, so let's get back to travel, because that's what we're here for, right? Like, I took this concept of a global configuration. I was like, alright, well, let's get back to where we started. I still really, really want my travel calculator. All right, I've got games coming up. I'm gonna have to travel. I'm gonna have to calculate the travel. I don't want to do that. I have been playing with this idea of this journey board, right? And this is how I have been doing it. I've been putting a little purple node here, okay, where the purple node actually shows you this is 160 miles between Shadowdale and Tibbleton. Normal speed is 4 days, 2 hours. Fast is 3 days, 1 hour. Alright, and as you can see, I've done that all the way along. Alright, you can see where my party are. They left on the high moors, so they're still there. Alright, so there's this concept here of me trying to figure out a nice way to keep track of this. And you know what? I came to the conclusion that this is not the best method for me to do this. Okay, this was a fair chunk of work. I like the way it looks, but it's taking up a lot of space. It's taking up a lot of time. So it's not the method that I would really like to use. All right, so what did I do? All right, well, let's go. And what did I just lose? I lost something. We use our new back buttons that are available now, which is really cool. Let's open up the world of Faerun. Alright, so this is my map. My players are coming down through here. And I was like, alright, how can we do this? Can we use a global configuration? What information do I need? Like I pulled the rule books out. I started stripping apart like the rules of travel and understanding of the calculation. And the first thing I did was I went into Excel and I started writing this down. And what I did is I basically went, all right, how long does it take for 1 mile? And I reverse engineered it back from 1 mile. And I said, all right, 1 mile equals, I think it's 20 minutes or something. Then I started making a bit of a table on all the different sort of factors, such as horses and goats and camels and like all these different factors of travel that can sort of come into play. And I was like, all right, let's do the calculations. And I got the calculations working in Excel first. All right, that's just the way I work. Excel's like a scratch pad for maths, right? You can just come along and you can easily put things together, trying to figure out exactly what these things look like. Here it actually is. I've like got this thing open. And I'm really just making like, you know, a bit of a reverse engineer. So like I was like, all right, if I'm walking, my base speed is 30, it takes me 30 minutes to do 1 mile at slow, 20 minutes at normal, and 15 minutes at fast, okay? And then I just did the same with camel. I was like 1 mile, blah, 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 write it all down, and here we go. Over here I started calculating, all right, well let's have a look at the mathematical equation. If I want to do 1 mile per day, or if I want to walk for 8 hours a day, but I want to walk 1 mile, then that equals 20 minutes, right? So hours per day is a rule. If you go 10 hours per day, you become exhausted, you get 1 level of exhaustion. So 8 hours a day seems to be the sweet point. If I travel 1 mile, I'm going to make it 20 minutes per mile. So I was referencing just the normal speed here. All right. Then I was converting that to minutes. So I took the, what did I do there? I took the miles, all right, times the minutes per mile, which gives me 20 minutes in order to get there. I then divided that by 60, all right, in order to get my hours. And then from there, I was just basically dividing the hours by the hours of travel per day, which gives me the amount of days that I need to travel. So, excuse me, relatively simple, like sort of idea about using Excel just to reverse engineer something and get your maths right? Quite a handy thing. Anyway, I took that formula and I was like, all right, how can we do this? And let me just show you what I've done first, because I think it's pretty cool. If I hold my mouse over Tippleton now, which is where my players sort of walked past in their last game, Tippleton Scar, you can see down here I've now got some options for the towns. Alright, and I can see here Shadowdale's 3.3 days travel from Tippleton. Okay, so Shadowdale's up here, it's going to be 3.3 days. Alright, if we've got Ashenfoot, alright, then it's another sort of thing. And what I've done here, guys, is I've used the concept of a global configuration. And if you actually hold your mouse over, you can see that I've got the party configuration even listed, right? So I can go in and change it at any time. So if I click on that, we'll have a look at there. I'm going to bring that out into a separate tab. Alright, so here we can see this is my configuration page. So what have I done? I've just copied in the table that I made in Excel. Okay, I've defined some front matter, which is what I'm using for the mass. Okay, so minutes per mile, I've got 10 there. I actually don't think I'm using that. I think I can actually remove that, but hours per day was absolutely required. Travel method isn't used in my calculation at all. If anyone knows how to do a lookup table, please, for the love of God, reach out and let me know. Like an Excel lookup table, if I can get from riding horse to value somehow from this table, please come and see me. Like, I want to know if that's possible. And then exhaustion level. So I'm putting this sort of stuff in here. You can see here that I'm then just referencing that in this note. That's not used in the calculation at all. I'm just mentioning that my travel method right now is a riding horse. Okay. Current minutes per mile is 10. Travel hours per day is 8. And my exhaustion level is 0. And you'll see that if I come over here and hold my mouse over, I'm bringing this information into my towns now. So travel, my method of travel, sorry, is a riding horse. I'm riding for 8 hours per day. My exhaustion level is currently 0. Okay, so I'm basically just keeping the information that's very important to me listed in my town notes, and you'll see that I've done this across multiple town notes. Okay, alright, so I'm bringing that information in there, and then I've got a link to the party configuration. And the reason why I do that, like let's say they go and sell their horse and they go and buy a pony, right? Like I need to be able to change that. And in this situation here, what I can do is I'm basically referencing this, right? So if they bought a riding horse and they're going to travel at normal speed, that's why I've got this here, right? Normal speed, so I do use the minutes per mile, sorry. Then, you know, they're going to go that far. But let's say that they're now walking. What I would do is I would come in here and change the fact that they're walking. I'd change the minutes per mile to 20, all right, because they're going to walk at a normal pace, and then we leave that. Okay, and now if I come back here, we'll close that down again and just reopen it. How cool are the new tabs? I really like them. Alright, we can now see that that's now changed the amount of time that it's going to take for us to get from one town to the next. Okay, so it's automatically calculated that and updated that for me based on that. Let's have a look at another situation here, right? So let's say that we want to have a point of exhaustion. They get to level 2 exhaustion, which for anyone who knows their rules, like at level 2 exhaustion, your speed is halved. All right, so at this point here, I reckon if we just click there and click back, we're now showing an even longer travel time. Okay, it's jumped up rather significantly. Because they're exhausted, it's going to take them twice as long to get where they need to go. Okay, so that's the concept, and it's relatively simple, as you can see. For me to change this is not hard at all. I think my players are currently using, I think they got riding horses, so I'll go back to 10, and I'll just put this in here. Alright, so now my configuration's set. I can reset my page. Alright, and we're back to more acceptable travel times, so no issues. Alright, so apart from this, alright, you've seen what's involved here. It's very simple, it's just a little bit of front matter. That's pretty much it. The rest is just information. It has nothing to do with the calculations in any way, shape or form. This is just for my information to make it easier for me to fill this little template in. Alright, so it's also prettier to look at, let's be completely honest. Like I prefer to read that than that. So that's about it. Alright, for the configuration side of the fence. So we'll stick that over here. Alright, we don't need that right now. But let's have a look where this all started. So Shadowdale is where my party has been. So here's a better look at what this looks like inside of a note. You can see I've got a fairly extensive sort of template going on here for my towns. It's something that I'm building over time, but I've got this like nice wiki table on the right which I really like, and that's where I've decided to add in the information. So I get some basic data about the town. You know, I interrupted it here because I thought this would be really nice to have actually in the hover over. Alright, so if anyone doesn't understand what I'm talking about there, like I wanted to be able to just hover over a town and have that information right up the top there. So I have decided to keep it sort of right up the top. And then I was like, alright, well, let's go through, and I've put that information in that I want about to see. And then I've gone, alright, well, let's start having a table here. So destination and travel days. I can list the different places that you can get to from this town and the amount of days that it's going to take to get there. Alright, but let's jump in and show you the code. Now, I will say this code can look a little bit overwhelming for anyone who's new to this, right? But you need to remember that this section here, all of this, is really, it's the right-hand table. Okay, so none of that is really necessary. What I'm showing you today here, this, actually, let's go back to there. That is the code. Okay, it's not even that bit at the end, to be honest. It's like that there. Okay, or actually not even that. Let's show you that. It's to there, right? That is the code. That is all we are talking about. Because if we go back to here, we have a table with 2 columns. So the first column just contains the town name, and all that is a link to the town name to say this is a town that you can go to. And then in the second column, I've actually just got a what do you call it? A little picture, an emoji, right? And then the outcome of the code. So if we go back into edit mode, so we break this down, we've got the name of the town, all right? Then we've got a pipe, which is basically like just the element of that table, right? The emoji. For anyone who hasn't played with this, you can press your Windows key full stop. I don't know the key on a Mac, sorry. I don't touch those things. They're dirty, dirty lockdown systems. Kill me for saying that, but I just don't use them. So I've used the clock symbol here, but I'm starting to use emojis and everything, guys, like just an FYI. Like, you can have some fun with emojis, right? You can click them into your notes and you can use them in all sorts of things. So they're really cool. I'm literally trying to display time to travel here, so I thought, well, let's put a clock in. That's really cool. Alright, but then we have the code. Alright, and this section here is what we're talking about, and I'll have this in the description below for this video, so feel free to go down there and cut and paste. But effectively what we're doing is it's a Dataview query. Alright, now a Dataview query always starts with this little comma thing here, and then an equals. So it's basically wrapped in these. Okay, and that's the little key next to your 1 key, right over in the top left of your keyboard, and basically that just says this is code. That's what it's for. Alright, this is code that equals. Okay, that's just how Dataview starts, is everything starts like that. It's all wrapped in those little signs, and then it has an equal symbol to say, I want you to display this. So then we break it down. Rounding. Rounding is a function. Alright, so it's rounding a number. In this case here, where does it come to? I think it's actually there. I'm rounding down to exhaustion levels greater than 1. I think it's actually that bit there. Yeah, I think. You know what? Let's do this. Let's throw this into Notepad++, just because it'll help you see the code a bit better if it opens. You know what, every time I open up Notepad++, it tries to update. Here we go. Alright, so here's Notepad++. If you haven't played with Notepad++, it's literally just a Notepad application, but it does have this support for other languages. Alright, so that's really good, which gives you the colors, which helps you sort of see the elements of your code that you're using. It's a free tool. It's very commonly used. I do recommend you do it. But it allows us to break these elements down. And that's what we're going to do today, is we're going to break this down and have a bit of a better look at what we're doing. So, alright, here. We've got the round command. Alright, you can see here that we've got a bracket, so that's where that's ending up there. So let's break this down. 90. 90 times. 90 times is my travel distance. Alright, this is the distance between one town and the next. And if we jump back into Obsidian, the way I'm doing this is I have the ability to hold Alt and to basically, move my mouse around and see how many miles exist between 2 points on the map. So in this case here, between Tiverton and Castle Crag is 114. Alright, what I've done, if we go to Tiverton and come in here, oh, looks like I rounded that one down to 110. Probably depends where I clicked, but 110 miles between these two. So I've put in 110. That's what that is. Alright, so is my travel distance times by. Here we go. My party configuration, 4 minutes per mile. All right, so how many minutes does it take me to walk per mile? All right, now if we go back to the party configuration, you can see I've already got a table that's figured this out. All right, I used that travel calculator to, write all of these down and get these different results. There's plenty of these tables out there online that you can look up and get these results for yourself. Otherwise, I'll have a link to my notes in my Patreon if anyone wants to get access to it. So that's all I need. So I've just basically copied that in, and I copied that into my result. So how many minutes per mile? And then what we're doing is we're timesing that by, and here we go. This is a multiplier. All right, just so you guys can see the code here. A choice, okay? A choice is a special sort of field, okay? It's a little bit complex in what it does, but this is a choice. So basically what it's saying is it's looking at my exhaustion level, all right? So it's looking at this exhaustion level here, and it's basically an if-then statement. So it's saying if my exhaustion is greater than 1, okay? I'm going to write this down. If exhaustion is greater than 1, all right, then return 2. Else return 1. All right, that's what this is saying. Because if exhaustion's level 2, then my speed is halved. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm saying minutes per mile. If I have exhaustion level 2 or more, then it takes me twice as long to get somewhere. Okay, so I'm timesing minutes per mile by 2 to represent the fact that it's going to take me twice as long to travel a mile. That's it. All right, so if exhaustion's greater than 1, return 2, else return 1. That's what this is saying. So it's a choice that I'm having a look at my exhaustion level, all right, bringing that in. In this case here, it would be 0. Is it greater than 1? No, it's not, so therefore return 1. All right, but if my exhaustion was level 2, is my exhaustion level greater than 1? Yes, it is, so return 2. Okay, so minutes per mile times 1 or times 2, depending on the outcome that we're looking for. All right, that gives me the total amount of minutes to travel a mile. Okay, and then here we're dividing by 60. Why are we doing that? We want to convert minutes to hours. All right, so minutes divided by 60 will give us hours, which will give us the amount of hours required to travel from one point to another. And then we've got the, well, this gives us the total hours. So now we divide it by the amount of hours that we're traveling per day. In order to convert hours, I should probably do this on the next slide because it's messing up, but now outside of that. Convert the hours to days. All right, so if we come back here and we have a look at, let's go Shadowdale. All right, travel days, we're now getting 1.9. Now, I could have divided that by 24 hours, but that would mean that obviously you're traveling for 24 hours, and the rules state if you travel over 8 hours, you get a level of exhaustion, so no one's really going to do that, right? You would kill your party very quickly, but yes, there's the calculations. So once we strip this all apart, it's basically how many miles I want to travel times by the minutes per mile. If I'm exhausted, double that, all right, because it's going to take me twice as long to get there. Divide by 60 to convert to hours. Divide by the amount of hours that I'm traveling per day to convert it to days, and the number will result in the number of days it requires to travel from one point to the other. All right, so it's relatively simple, and the rounding up the top, by the way, all that does is get rid of the decimal points. So this 1 at the end, all right, see this bit here, that is part of the round. All right, you can see that the bracket there and the bracket there. The comma basically says that I'm finished with my calculation. I have a comma, and I'm now putting the next piece of information that round needs as part of my function, and I'm going to 1 decimal point. All right, if we come back here, we can see that I'm bringing in 1 decimal point in all of these. I could come in here and change this to something like 5. All right, and it will come in and add the 5 decimal points to the end of that. But, you know, that is messy and I don't need that, so relatively simple, just have 1. So that's it, guys. Like, it's a pretty extensive configuration, right? It looks quite scary, so but once you break it down, it's not really that bad. I've already written this as well, so like you can just come along and copy it into your notes, go for your heart's content. But that's yeah, I don't know. I am absolutely loving this, right? Because let's just go through and just, you know, have a look at what this sort of impact this has on me. I can now come on and go, all right, you guys are in Tiverton. You want to get over to Castle Aris, no problems. That's 6.8 days travel. Off we go. It's going to take you 6.8 days. And what I'm thinking while I'm doing that is 6.8 days, of course something's going to happen. Of course they're going to see some people on the road as they travel. Like 6.8 days, but you can't just let them go and get bored in that time. So then Aris between there. All right, so oh, I need to actually update that back to Tiverton. All right, so let's just do that. We'll go in here and I'm just going to change Aris to Tiverton. Get rid of that. All right, so now we've got Tiverton. It's actually called Tiverton Scar. Now it's like having a bit of a heart attack. Oh no, I think I actually have maybe configured that one up right. Alright, so there we go. Yeah. Let's go back, have a look at this. Alright, so we're getting to Aris. Now we can go. Next town is Haluthvar. That's 3.1 days travel. Off you go. You get to Haluthvar. We're now heading to Ashbrand. That's 1.9 days travel. You now get here, all right, and we're getting back to Erebor, so that's 1.1 days travel, right? It's really fantastic functionality for me as a Dungeon Master to go, this is how long it's going to take, and I don't need to stop, I don't need to reach for my player handbook, find the rules, remember how the calculation works, it's just there. And, all right, to put this in for a new one, right, like it's relatively simple, so let's go through and show you that. So I have Erebor, I've just made that. These notes have not been filled out yet, guys, like I'm still generating these as I go. But let's say the players want to go to Easting. This is what I would do. I'll go into my Easting note, I'm going to trigger my template. I have a template for a settlement. Alright, here's my template. Alright. You can see my template already has a travel day in here for Voonlar. Alright, but you can see it's got lots of placeholders, it's basically empty. You can see lots of front matter in here, that's fine. But if we come in here, what we actually need to do is go back to the map and say from Easting we could go to Erebor. So if we go to Easting and go to Erebor, we'll get rid of the Voonlar, put Erebor in there. Alright, so now I have Erebor in here as my one place it can travel to. We'll click back, and I'm like, alright, how far away are these two? I'll hold Alt and click, and just get a really rough 55 miles between the two. Alright, doesn't have to be perfect, guys. And then we'll come in here, we'll press Edit, and we'll change the 90 to 55. Alright, so that's the number of miles, and now we have 1.1 travel days between here and Erebor. Alright, so that's as hard as it is. Now, I'll go through obviously and I'll start copying in information from the wiki and put all this other sort of stuff in here. Something that I might also do is go through and have a look at how long it's going to take me. Sorry, have a look at the other places it can go to, so like Proscar, for example. Let's just come in here, we've got Proscar. We'll put the settlement in here as well. Alright, we're going back to Erebor. Alright, click back. Oh, I highlighted it. So between Proscar And easting, oh sorry, I gotta change it to easting, don't I? Is 100 miles. There you go. So we'll come in here, we'll change this to 100. Change this to easting. Alright. And now we have from Prosca to easting, oh, is 2.1 days. Alright. Now what you can do though is as you do these things you can actually copy them. So the distance between this town is the same in both directions. So what you can do is go back into here, go back into easting, alright, come in here and just paste that same line back in. And then we just have to change the name. So we're going from easting to Prosca. We'll go back into easting and change easting to Prosca. Alright, there we go. Now we have both of those reflected on our map. Now we can instantly hold over here. We can see that that is there done. So that's really as hard as it is to sort of go through and set these things up. Obviously templates are the absolute way to go. If you're not using templates, you're not using Obsidian yet, like get onto that. But by having your templates set up, it's really not hard. I don't have to remember any of the code. All I have to do is remember to update the name of the town and update the number of miles between that town and the place I'm putting back into there. So anyway, that's it. So anyway guys, hopefully this has really sort of given you some ideas around what you could do with global configurations. Anna, absolutely huge thanks to you for throwing the idea out there into the forums. Like I'm really enjoying this concept and I'm really happy with this functionality that I've built as a result of your ideas. So huge thank you to you. Really keen to see what the community can do with this sort of concept moving forward, because I think there is quite a bit. Right, I don't really understand exactly how far we can go, but all the D&D community is getting ready to go into space. Like, you could have a map of planets and you could have the distance between those planets represented into whatever distance measure or concept you want, right? It doesn't have to be miles, it doesn't have to be kilometers, it could be light years, for example, but conceptually it's the same. Is what is the distance between point A and point B, and you can calculate in that as well. I don't think I'm quite finished with this, to be completely honest. Like, I might need to add some more elements to my calculation. I've got exhaustion, but I know there's some magic items and there's like flying and things like that that might have an impact on things. I could even look at like the type of environment that they're walking through and actually have a configuration for like environmental impacts. Like, are they on a road? If they're on a road, it's 100% speed, but if not and you're walking through the grass, you might cut down to 70% speed, for example. So who knows? But anyway, if you are enjoying this content, please do like and subscribe. I want to say a massive, huge thanks to all my patrons, and just a big reminder, guys, that if you guys do want access to my vault templates in order to obviously use this in your own vault, then hop over to my Patreon, and that's where you can get access to that for you as well. And Patreon access does also give you access to a Discord where I'm on basically call a lot of the time to help you guys with any questions that you may have. And obviously there's a community there that's starting to have a bit of fun as well. So heads up on that. So anyway, enjoy your night, guys. We will speak to you on the forums. Enjoy.